Today, I'm going to be telling you what it's like to live in Colorado Springs. I get a lot of questions about what it's like to live here in Colorado Springs, and some of these questions you won't find answers to from a simple Google search. I've compiled a list of top questions from people online and people that I know, and I'm going to answer those questions today. But first, my name is Iris with the Living the Springs channel, your Colorado Springs living and real estate resource. I've lived here in the Colorado Springs area for basically all of my life, and I specialize in helping people relocate to Colorado Springs, Colorado. If you have more questions than the ones I addressed today, make sure you drop those in the comments, because if you have those questions, then chances are other people will have those questions as well. So thank you so much for helping build this amazing community. Also, consider subscribing to learn more about living in Colorado Springs. The first frequent question that I get is, what are people like here in the Springs? We're a pretty diverse culture. There's a little bit of everything here, which has not always been the case, especially when it comes to political parties. Now, we used to be much more conservative, but now we have a nice balance of Republicans and Democrats, and a lot of people have opted to affiliate libertarian, just like our mayor. We have both left and right ideology, and as always, you do have those extremists, but I try to stay away from those people who put politics over people. I've noticed that the more dense an area is, like downtown Colorado Springs, the more liberal, but on the outskirts, maybe less. But people are generally friendly in friendly situations, meaning it's not friendly like if you go towards the south, where people just casually start friendly conversations in public with complete strangers, but friendly as a nice nod and smile as you're passing each other in public. A lot of people are just really on the go when they're out in public, but as you get to know people and get to know them in these smaller communities, they're a lot more friendly. It's just out in public, for some reason, people are just trying to get to where they need to go, so they're just not as friendly. Now, the second question is, what are the activities in the area? First of all, we're definitely known for our outdoor living. Everyone knows that. Trails are everywhere. We have a lot of things to do when it comes to nature activities, hiking, biking, trails, and things like that. The one con that we have here is the lack of swimming pools in summer. So during the pandemic, a lot of these pools closed down and they would reach their max capacity. So you'd have all your kids in their swim gear ready to go just to show up to the YMCA swimming pool and get turned away because they were full. Now, they were so packed that people started getting creative and renting out hotel rooms just so they can get a decent pool that's not crowded. So that's one of the downfalls here, is that we don't have a lot of swimming pools where people can just go. If I were you, I would just try and get in early and try and beat the crowds, even though that might be kind of hard. There was one website that was allowing you to book a slot online, but I don't know honestly if they're doing that anymore. But there's a lot of things to do, such as going shopping at the malls. There's mini golf. We have a raceway, I think it's called Overdrive, where you can go in. It's like mini speed car racing. And we have indoor skydiving. We also have Topgolf here. So because of the growth of our city, a lot of stuff has come here. When it comes to things to do, there's just way more things now that it's busier and bigger. When it comes to public transportation, Colorado Springs is a city that relies heavily on cars for transportation, but also offers some public transit options for residents and visitors. The city's bus service, Mountain Metro Transit, operates over 40 routes that cover most of the urban areas, as well as some rural destinations. The bus service also provides paratransit service for people with disabilities and shuttle service for Manatee Springs and downtown. Also, Colorado Springs has bike lanes, trails, and bike share programs for cyclists and a regional airport for travel. However, the city does not have any rail or light rail services, which limits connectivity between cities in the state, but we do have the Greyhound, so there's that. The third question is, what's the best neighborhood to live in? Now, people often look for highly rated schools if they have kids that they're going to enroll in. You may also want to consider affordability as to which neighborhood you want to move to and where are the most affordable places to live in Colorado Springs. But before we get into the most affordable places, let's talk about your work-life commute. Now, if you want to be living near Air Force Academy, then you're going to probably choose a neighborhood that's close to it, unless you don't mind the commute. One thing I will say is that a lot of people will love like the Banning Lewis neighborhood because there's a lot of amenities like swimming pools, dog parks, pickleball. There's a lot of stuff in that neighborhood for young, all the way up to some resort style living for 55 plus. So the people will tend to want to live there even though they're driving all the way to Fort Carson because that's where they're stationed. And that could be a 45-minute drive on a good day. So if the weather is bad, then that could be even longer to get to work. So something to think about as you're choosing your area. If you want to live close to Fort Carson, you'll consider places like Widefield, Security, or maybe Fountain, Fort Carson, anywhere on the south end of town. 80915 and 80916. Those are closer to Schriever Air Force Base. And if you're wanting mountain views, or if you want to live closer to trees and views and things like that, you'll want to consider the west side. Now, you can actually get mountain views anywhere you are in the Springs. It's really hard to not have a mountain view, even if it's just a sliver. But if you want to be really in the thick of it, the west side is great for that. Anything on the west side of I-25, actually. Okay, so let's talk about the cost of living. Now, the average rent in Colorado Springs for an apartment is going to range around $1,500 per month. And that's pretty insanely expensive for a lot of people, especially if you're not from here. We've got colleges here where, you know, they're students, they are on a budget. So I met with one gentleman and he had 2 other roommates in there in a small apartment. I think it was a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. It was pretty expensive. I don't know how much he was paying for rent, but you can get something for less. Of course you can, but I'm just speaking on averages, between around $1,200 to $1,500 for an apartment. Now, when you're talking single family home, you're probably looking closer to $2,200 to $2,500 per month for a single family 3-bedroom, 2-bath garage type of situation. And then the further north you go, the more expensive the homes get. The further south you go towards Strathmore, maybe on the south east parts of town, southwest even, some parts just before you get to the Broadmoor area are going to be a little bit more affordable as well. Now, the cost of gas and groceries. I filled up my tank and I spent about, I'll spend around $40 to $50 when I fill it up, and I'm using it. I've got an SUV, it's a full size, and I'm probably using it, well, I do drive a lot, so yours might be a lot less. And as far as groceries go, we are slightly less than the national average, but it's still very expensive to get groceries. We get those 5-pound bags of cheese, and that is probably around $7 to $8. Milk is probably running around $3 for a gallon, and then I got 2 dozen eggs for about $4.50. So I'm not sure what that's like compared to where you are, but it's still a lot for us just because inflation has just gotten out of control. So our housing is more than the national average. Gas and groceries are probably going to be less than your major cities. And we're a pretty big city here. We're not as big as like Denver or some of your larger metropolitan areas, but we're big enough to have a lot of companies out here, tech companies, obviously the military bases, and things like that. So still pretty affordable when you compare us to similar cities. Now, we will get into more on affordability for housing later in the video, but before we do that, I want to talk about the weather because I get that question a lot too, is what is the weather out here in Colorado Springs? Basically, we do get 4 seasons. We get summer, spring, fall, winter, and in the winter time it's really beautiful when it's sunny outside. We do get mild temperatures, and so it's pretty warm. I would say between 40s and 50s in the winter time, and then we get all the way up to maybe high 90s in the dead of August. So that's going to be our hottest temperatures, but it's kind of nice to have all 4 seasons because you get to experience leaves changing in the fall, and it's just beautiful. It looks so pretty. And then of course the snow, you do get that. I just wish winter wasn't as long as it is, but it is what it is. We do have a little bit of a drought. We don't get a lot of moisture here. It's very dry. So we are susceptible to fire. So we really have to be careful when it comes to fire. Insurance has gotten really crazy out here when it comes to purchasing houses because some people don't want to insure it if you're living in a big wooded area or it's super expensive and unaffordable, but they're worried about that fire situation. We have been getting a lot more hail in the last few years, which has been pretty interesting. Hail and a couple tornadoes we saw on the east side of Colorado Springs last year and the year before, and that's pretty unusual. I've always said that Colorado Springs has the best temperature. It's the perfect weather here, but it's gotten pretty bad. So let's talk about what people don't like about Colorado Springs. They don't like the affordability. They don't like that housing has shot up so much. I mean, we're talking 40 to 50% in some areas of doubling payments. We just recently had our properties assessed and those taxes shot up 40 to 50%. So, I mean, we're in a low tax area, which I'm grateful for, because some of my friends were paying $400 to $600 to even $1,200 more per month because of how much the taxes had gone up. So no one saw that coming because the assessment landed at the peak of our season. And of course, they're going to do it again next year. They'll reevaluate and hopefully that'll kind of balance out, I'm hoping. And they're thinking about giving it back to us in the form of, like, in our utility bill. I don't know, something crazy I just saw in the Gazette. If you want more information about that, I can share that or do a video about it. But I thought, not everybody pays property taxes, but we're going to get like $20 off of our utility bill. So that's exciting. When it comes to things that people don't like about Colorado Springs is the constant construction. It seems like it's everywhere. It makes Colorado Springs look pretty ugly, in my personal opinion, to have construction everywhere, and these signs are just awful. Another thing that people don't like about Colorado Springs is how expensive childcare is and how scarce it is. So people are opening up childcare centers within their homes, but I know people like to be in those facilities, in those public settings where it's just easier to, you know, pick up, drop off. Kids can get to know each other in their grade level. And infant care is very hard to get as well, because not all childcare centers offer an infant program because there are additional requirements to have infant care, and it's expensive. The ratio is like 1 to 5 to take care of babies, and it's a lot for one person. Now, the other thing that people don't like about Colorado Springs is a little bit more subjective, because if you're coming from a larger city, you're not going to care about the traffic here. You probably think it's no big deal. But if you're coming from a smaller city or town and you come here, or if you've lived here for all of your life like me, then traffic is going to be a pain in the butt. And especially with the construction, it's really frustrating to drive through and oftentimes unsafe. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the real estate market crashing. In short, the real estate market is not crashing, not in the way that we think it is. It might be crashing in a different way, where people are starting to feel the pressure of not being able to afford their monthly payments, where they're getting behind, having to put things on credit cards, but they are living in these homes that they overpaid for during COVID, but they've got that really good interest rate. So it's really a weird situation that we have here, where people don't want to move, they don't want to sell because they can't afford the next house. And so the most affordable areas, as I was mentioning earlier in the video, those are obviously going a lot quicker. These homes start around $300K. You really can't find anything under $300K unless it's a townhouse or a condo, and even then you're going to be paying for HOA dues on top of it. So an HOA might be $300 to $400 a month, and you really don't get a lot with that. Like there's there's 2 locations here in the Springs that promise a swimming pool, but then when we bought the house, we found out that they were going to be filling it in with cement. You're not getting anything for that $300 a month. It's actually all going towards the insurance, and that's been a nightmare as well. So there's a whole condo HOA crisis thing going on, and I will do a video about that later on. So make sure you are subscribed so you can get that notification. But it's been really challenging to find housing under $300K. And so if you're going to buy a house that's under $300K that has a high OHOA, you might as well buy a home and hire somebody to come help you take care of that house. Why would you spend all this money, all this extra money, although maybe the insurance might offset because you only have to get exterior. But for me, I'd rather have an asset that I have control over, not one where I have to go beat down the HOA company's door just to get something fixed. For example, I had a seller that had a unit up above her, and the unit was vacant and the pipes burst, and they could not get a hold of the owner for weeks. Apparently she had passed away, and so the daughter or the son or whoever was in charge, they were trying to get a hold of that person, and they didn't want to fix it because it was going to cost them a ton of money. So they had to wait on approval from the HOA, from the board. And these people had nowhere to live, or they had to go somewhere else. My friend specifically, the seller had to go to, or the homeowner actually had to go live with her mother and sleep on her couch for several days. Now, who wants to do that? So there's just way too many hoops, and everything just had fallen out of the floor there onto the concrete in the garages there. I think I have a video and a picture of that, but just really crazy things when it comes to condos. So days on market, we are looking at around 40 to 60 depending on the price point. And the last couple of years, the days on market was closer to 11 to 25 days. And so it's been changing. It just really depends on the feds and the interest rates and how it affects the days on market and the pricing. So obviously when the rates go up, the days on market are longer, but the prices aren't really coming down all that much. They are coming down, just not as much as we were hoping for it to be, which even though the prices are coming down, you're paying more for the house. So the whole interest rate versus home pricing is kind of a mind game to me, because I'm paying more for the house because of the interest rate to get the price to come down. It doesn't make sense to me. So is it worth it to move to Colorado Springs? A few things that you want to consider before making the move is just making sure that you are going to enjoy living here. If you do plan on purchasing a home, make sure that you are going to be here for a very long time. Maybe you have a really good job that is secure, that you actually enjoy. You don't get here, relocate, and then end up hating it, and then buying a house and then having to sell it. And it's a lot more stressful when you're trying to get that equity off your hands. You'll have no problem selling it for sure. Well, I guess I can't say for sure, but as long as it's priced right and it's in really good condition, it will sell. But it's just one less thing you'll have to deal with. So a lot of people have been wanting to just rent first and then think about buying later. So anyway, everyone's different. Everyone's situation is different. Hey, thank you so much for watching. My name is Iris. If you are looking for help buying or selling real estate in Colorado Springs, feel free to email or text me. Honestly, the calls have been gotten crazy. There's a lot of spam calls, and I've been getting a lot of calls for different things here and there, and email and text is honestly the best way to reach me. And if you want to learn more about living in Colorado Springs, watch the video that is popping up next on the screen. I think you'll like it.